Ethan Blackstone was known across the city as a man carved from success, the kind of billionaire who commanded respect wherever he went. His name was printed on skyscrapers, whispered in boardrooms, and envied by those who tried to climb even half as high as he had. But wealth had not given him peace. Behind his calm eyes and sharp suits was a man haunted by something he could never name, a strange emptiness that lingered no matter how many awards, cars, or homes he owned. Ethan had grown up in loneliness. His father, Ethan Blackstone Sr., was a powerful businessman who had little time for love, and his mother had vanished from his life when he was just 7. Every year on his birthday, he used to stare at her photograph, wondering why she never came back. Now, decades later, he lived in a mansion so large that his own footsteps echoed like ghosts in the halls. When his new maid arrived that winter morning, Ethan didn't expect anything different. She was quiet, polite, and worked efficiently. Her name was Amara. There was something about her that caught his attention, though he couldn't explain what. She carried herself with a calm dignity, unlike anyone he had met in years. She never complained, never wasted words, and seemed oddly comfortable in silence. Sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, Ethan caught glimpses of sadness in her eyes, as if she, too, was carrying an invisible burden. Within weeks, Ethan realized he looked forward to seeing her. He would find excuses to ask her questions, just to hear her soft voice reply. But the strangest thing was the way she looked at him. Sometimes, not with admiration or fear, but with curiosity, even recognition, as if his face meant something to her. One evening, when she handed him a file, their hands brushed, and she froze. He noticed the small silver locket around her neck and felt something familiar about it. Though he couldn't place why, he almost asked her about it, but something in her eyes stopped him. For the first time in years, Ethan felt unsettled, not by business, but by a quiet maid who seemed to hold a secret connected to a part of his past he could never reach. That night, the storm outside roared like the past Ethan could never silence. Rain lashed against the glass walls of his study as he sat by the fireplace, lost in thought. He had spent the entire day distracted, his mind replaying the moment he saw that silver locket on Amara's neck. There was something painfully familiar about it. He remembered faintly his mother wearing one just like it, a delicate, oval locket with a tiny dent near the clasp. It was the only thing she never took off. The image of her soft smile and warm hands flickered in his mind like a memory on the edge of breaking. He closed his eyes and exhaled, trying to shake the thought away, but he couldn't. A knock broke the silence. When the door opened, Amara stood there holding a tray with coffee. Her eyes hesitated when they met his. "You're still awake, sir," she said softly. He nodded, gesturing for her to set it down. As she turned, the firelight glinted off the silver locket again, and this time he couldn't stop himself. "May I see that?" Ethan asked. His tone was gentle but carried a strange urgency. Amara hesitated, her fingers curling around the chain protectively. "It's very old," she whispered. "It belonged to my mother." Ethan's heart thudded. "Please," he said, his voice almost breaking, "just for a second." Slowly, she unclasped the chain and handed it to him. The metal was cool against his skin, but it felt heavy, as if it carried decades of silence within it. He opened the locket carefully, and his breath caught. Inside was a small, faded photograph of a smiling woman holding a baby. The woman's eyes, soft, kind, and painfully familiar, mirrored his mother's face from the old portraits he kept locked away. His pulse raced as he whispered, "Where did your mother get this?" Amara's voice trembled. She said it was a gift from a man she once loved, a man she never saw again. His name was Ethan Blackstone. The name hung between them like lightning. Ethan's hands began to shake. "My father's name was Ethan Blackstone," he said quietly. Their eyes met, hers wide with disbelief, his filled with fear. The air felt heavy with something neither could understand yet. Amara stepped back, clutching the edge of the table for balance. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The rain outside grew louder, as if the storm had finally found its voice. The next morning, Ethan barely slept. The memory of the photograph haunted him through the night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his mother's face inside that locket, and the quiet shock in Amara's eyes when he spoke his father's name. By sunrise, he was pacing the study, waiting for her to arrive. When Amara finally came, she looked pale and nervous. In her hands, she held a small, worn-out leather book. "Sir," she said softly, "I think this belongs to you as much as it does to me." Ethan frowned, stepping forward. "What is it?" She hesitated before placing it on his desk. "It's my mother's diary. I found it after she passed away. I didn't understand everything then, but now I think it's connected to you." Ethan's hands trembled as he picked up the diary. The first page was old, yellowed by time, but her handwriting was neat and delicate. The name written at the top, Maya Bennett, struck him like a blade. He had not spoken that name aloud in decades. Maya had been his mother's name. His vision blurred as he began to read. The diary told a story of a young woman who worked in a small seaside inn, where she met a charming man named Ethan Blackstone, his father. They had fallen in love quickly, but the world around them had been cruel. The man came from wealth. The woman came from nothing. One day he promised to return for her after a business trip, but he never did. The diary went on, describing how Maya had discovered she was pregnant soon after. She wrote about the fear, the shame, and the hope that someday he would come back for her and their child. But months passed, and she realized he never would. So she left the city raising her child, Amara, alone. Ethan's hands shook violently as he read the next line. He said his son would carry his name proudly. "If I ever meet that child, I will tell him he had a sister who grew up without a father's name." The words blurred before his eyes. Ethan dropped the diary onto the desk, his breath uneven. He looked at Amara, who stood there, tears glistening in her eyes, and whispered, "That means you're my sister." She nodded slowly, her face pale but calm. "I didn't want to believe it," she said, her voice trembling. "But I saw your picture in the newspaper, and I knew. I came here because I needed to see for myself." The truth settled like a storm inside them both, painful, undeniable, and life-changing. For a long time, neither Ethan nor Amara spoke. The truth had stripped away every wall between them. Wealth, position, and pride, leaving only two souls bound by blood and years of separation. Ethan sank into his chair, staring blankly at the rain streaking down the tall windows. His heart felt heavy, filled with guilt for sins he hadn't committed but still carried the weight of. "My father," he whispered bitterly, "he left you both." He left her. Amara didn't reply. She simply stood there, holding the diary close to her chest, as if it were the only piece of her mother she had left. After a moment, she said softly, "My mother never hated him. She just wished he had told her the truth. She believed he loved her once. That was enough for her." Her words broke something inside. Ethan. He realized how much pain one man's silence had caused, how many years of loneliness had been built on unspoken truths. Ethan looked up, his eyes glistening. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, though his voice trembled. "Not because I don't want you here, but because this place, this life, it's built on his lies. You deserve better." Amara smiled faintly, tears in her eyes. "I didn't come for money or revenge, sir. I just wanted to know who he was, and why he never came back. Now I know. That's enough for me." She turned to leave, but Ethan stood quickly. "Amara," he said, his voice breaking, "don't go. Your family." She stopped, then looked at him sadly. "I am, but I need to find out who I am too. My mother taught me to forgive, but she also taught me to stand on my own." Her words were calm, but her strength shone through every syllable. Months passed. Ethan tried to bury himself in work, but nothing felt the same. The mansion felt colder, emptier, as if it missed her presence too. One evening, he attended a charity gala, something he rarely did anymore. As he stepped into the hall, his eyes caught a familiar voice on stage. Amara stood there, dressed simply yet glowing with quiet confidence, speaking about hope and forgiveness. "Sometimes," she said, "family isn't about who stayed, but about who chose to love anyway." Ethan felt his throat tighten. When their eyes met across the crowd, she smiled softly. In that moment, he understood that forgiveness didn't erase the past. It healed it. The truth had once shattered his world, but through it, he found something priceless. the peace his heart had searched for all his life.